Today we're going to talk about the concept of onboarding. This relates to anything that's new that's coming into the organization. It almost doesn't matter what it is. It could be a new property, or a new office or location. Maybe we're acquiring other companies. Or it could be something that happens regularly, like new vendors or employees. In any event, the pattern is pretty much the same. The red line represents the issues or challenges or problems or tasks that have to be done. We start up here, and over time, they should decline. The green line represents value. As we get these things done, the value of whatever we're doing increases and at a certain point gets to something that's kind of stabilization. We have a concept of time, or how long it took to get there, and also a concept of value, namely how much value did we create. Both of these measures become really important, and our goal is obviously to decrease the time and increase the value. So let's talk about how this gets done in a typical or standard company. Usually there's a person who's an expert in this kind of stuff, and they're responsible for these new things. So maybe it's a new property, and this person kind of understands a lot of different things that have to happen, and tasks and people, and they're good at it because they've done it before. So they know who to contact, and they've got certain lists and people to call about things, and they get their team together and so on and so forth. And what ends up happening is their experience and their ability to interact with these people results in a lot of stuff getting done over time. Meanwhile, if we have other people doing the same thing, they're out there with their version and we're using their experience. Now, these people might be in the same office or in different parts of the country, or they may be working in parallel or at different times, but they each typically have their approach and their way to do things and their resources and their artifacts that they use and so forth. And what we wind up with is a competent group of people, but they're often doing things in different ways between them, and it can be quite confusing when you look at exactly what's going on in here. The problem is if we miss things here or things take too long, we change the shape of these curves. You might think of a standard company's process looking something like this. With reaching stabilized value at a certain time and at a certain level. Now let's look at what happens with Stemmons. We have someone at Stemmons who's responsible for onboarding this new asset or thing or person or whatever it is. The first thing they do is they go to Quest and they use an onboarding Quest form. At the top it has some data about the thing that they're doing, and then there's a list of tasks that represent the things that have to be done in a typical configuration. Now, not all of these things will apply every time, so what this person does is goes through this list and just indicates the yes and no about what needs to be done. Also, there's an opportunity to put in notes to explain some details. And next thing you know, this person is ready to go ahead and save this form. Once they do, Quest springs into action. Behind each of these questions is a rule. These rules indicate who this should be assigned to, when it should be due, what kind of case it's going to be, and so forth. Once these rules are activated, the system creates all the cases or tasks that are needed for this item. It also assigns them to the right people based on roles or maybe the metadata that's listed up here. And now each of these people knows exactly what they need to do. If this person is responsible for multiple things, they just use the same form again with the specific details needed for each one. If there's another person in the organization who's doing that same thing, they use the same approach, giving a very consistent look and feel and experience for all of these people who are now getting very consistent cases throughout the organization. Now let's think about these cases that are coming out of these forms. This represents a universal list of things that have to happen in order for this project or asset or whatever to be onboarded into the company. And because we're tracking in Stemmons, we can do some interesting things with that. Using facts for reports, we can create reports for individual projects, for people, things that are past due, so on and so forth, and give us a really good sense of exactly what's happening with each of these projects and in the company overall. This information allows the people responsible for these projects to have a feedback loop and really understand what's going on without the kind of chaos that we see over here. We get the work done much faster, and as a result, we return value much more quickly and at a higher level. When we think about the amount of money and time that goes into these things, we really create value by onboarding things into an organization.